Okay, Lori, when was the last time you realized that you were carrying way more than anyone could actually see?
All the time. But I think I had a recent event almost 2 years ago where my husband passed away, and that really stripped for me the ability for me to do more than I was actually capable of because I was dealing with grief. And so I feel that that moment was a big turning point for me to actually see how many patterns and how many things I put in my life and how much I was carrying versus those patterns that were created by me versus what was actually needed. And so I would say 2 years ago, I got a really big reminder of that, where I got to really look at my life and say, hey, I only have so much energy and my kids are my focus right now. What is it I can let go of? And what was really surprising to me, Marnie, was how many things I had them as I shoulds, where I should be this type of parent. I should be doing that. But I had a lot of things that I was carrying, and our patterns in society still make me those come up for me. But I think that I've really been building my muscle to not carry as much anymore unless it really is aligned with who I am as a person.
I just wanted to recognize the fact that, you and I have had some conversations and have talked about this. I mean, we've gone on a long walk and talked about stuff. And so I think that what people probably aren't going to necessarily see or hear is how incredibly healthy you're able to like talk about that in such a healthy manner of like, I recognize this. Yeah, that was a wake up call. And I think having been somebody that's listened to you share about that, what I take from it is, and we all don't have to have those enormous wake up calls. Like let's feel grateful of a friend like you that'll say like, this was my big wake up call. Like I want you to have it sooner, or I want you to
Right.
have it now without having something like that have to happen.
Yeah, 0 out of 10 stars. Don't recommend that the path that was my is part of my journey. But
Right.
one, I love that you recognize that and you say that I'm processing it healthy because, all of us are just trying our best to get through the day. And you're like, I don't know if it's healthy or not. I just know that I'm, where I feel is I'm strengthening by really getting honest with myself about when I feel as if I need to go to this meeting because so and so invited me and I should do that. Like I'm getting better and better, and it's small micro moment by small micro moment to say, wait a minute, is that actually going to fulfill my purpose, or am I doing this out of obligation? And when you have something deep, right, like a death, a grief, like you have to be kind of careful with your emotions. And so it helps with the honesty lens. And I agree with you. Like, I want everyone to just remember, like, wait a minute, we are all strong, beautiful, powerful women who are watching the world around us, right? Everything seems to be crumbling and changing right now. But
Mhm.
as women, we have this ability to look at the holistic picture and still be able to integrate and serve those individual differences in our life. Maybe it's being there for my daughter when she's really upset, or maybe it's, supporting my mom who is 77 and while she's full of life, right, has new things. It's about putting those things at the forefront and then realizing that, wait a minute, I have a choice in every minute of every day that I spend. Whatever I can do to find a little more agency or freedom is what I hope to
Mhm.
do by actually looking at and processing those emotions.
I think women are incredibly skilled at being able to look at the worldview, like you just described. And that's where I love the conversation that we're going to get into, because it's like, oh my gosh, we need more women to feel empowered to be able to do this and take some things off of their plate. In fact, I was even thinking as I was prepping for our conversation today, is that I find women more often, at least the women in my life more often than the men in my life, are open to change. Women are like, bring it on, like, whatever, I got to change. But what ends up being that barrier, or the thing that ends up, I don't know, pushing it out further, is because there's so much that they're carrying. And so I think
Right.
that's part of what we're going to get into today, and part of what we're going to start talking about, which is why we're trying to create a space that women can come in, use some tools, but really get into a conversation about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, we have this society that is very linear, very focused, which is great. It has gotten us, I mean, humanity is we have in the last 100 years taken ourselves further than we ever have, right? But now we're seeing the things that built us there, that got us here, are definitely not, they're not going to take us to the future, right? So we have to make those shifts. And I mean, who better than women, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
the ones when it all comes crashing down, that's like, okay, we got to first make sure all of our people are okay, right? We've got to make sure that we're not, call it the love, call it that mama energy, whatever it is, right? That feminine energy. And it's not just women and men, it's more of that feminine holistic of like,
Mm-hmm.
we're all connected, right? We are really, it is a more nurturing thing that the world does need more of now. And it's funny because it feels like, God, we need to do some big, huge changes in our life. But the real empowerment comes when you start in your own life and making small changes. And I'm going to share this example with you. I have blinds, I have really big windows. I live in an old house and I have blinds that my husband loved them, perfectly brought down to it every night at a certain level. And he was very OCD. So he liked them all very, very neat. Well, for the last 10 or 15 years, I've been at night, I open them, in the morning, I close them. And like all of a sudden, I realized, like, wait a minute, nobody can see in those windows except for me. And it sounds silly, but I took a little empowerment back to lighten my load to say, you know what? I'm not going to do that. Like, I can take 3 minutes out of my routine here and 3 minutes out just to be like, you know what? Who cares if somebody sees in those windows? I don't think they can, but like that is just an example of really all of the little things that we stack up our day with that show up as necessities, but really are just patterns we created. We don't,
Right.
most of the time, don't even remember why.
Right. Oh, exactly. I mean, I think about, well, first of all, my brain went to like, hey, if you want to see it, come see it.
Basically, who I
Listen,
am, I was like, whatever. I'm not
knock
interesting enough
yourself
to really
out.
worry about it.
Right. Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, I've even thought about it was so interesting. I swear I'm going to ask you a question, but it was so interesting. Even just the other day, I was like, literally every day when I open up my computer and I go to a browser window, I know the first place that I go because I usually typically do like a morning writing exercise. And I'm like, why do I not have my home screen opening up to the place I go every single day? I'm like, this is
It's
2 years
15
for me to figure
seconds.
this out. How
Right?
dumb.
Like, but the time to do that would save you just
Yes.
a little bit. And that's what's like so cool. And I know, so Marty and I are both all about, right, creating the future of the world. What can it look like? And how can we just help everybody, right? Help us women just lighten our load. And that's one of the things that's really cool about AI, whatever you feel about it, is I feel like it's the greatest excuse, even if you don't fully understand how it works or anything. It's the greatest excuse to stop doing things that you don't want to be doing anymore, or just start removing those little things. Like for you,
Mm-hmm.
that probably took all of 10 minutes to go and find in your settings where it was. And now you've eliminated one step out of your day.
Right. Yeah. I took one. Yeah. Alleviated something that was just unnecessary. Okay. So let me ask you this question. So I think it would be really great for everyone to hear a little bit about your background and what led you to start using AI, both from a business perspective, right? But also just a personal perspective, because I think that'll be really helpful for people, however they might want to tap into this and use it more.
Okay. So I have a neuroscience background, and probably my biggest passion in this world. That's what I graduated college with back in the 90s. But I just love thinking about thinking. Like, I'm so interested in us as weirdo, freaky humans. Like, we all create these vivid stories and we have these beliefs and these theories. And it's what I like kind of dig and really get excited about is why are people doing this? I've spent the last 25 years in technology. In the late 90s, I got into a .com when didn't even know what, digital was or anything. But so I've been in technology, and I always find myself right at that intersection of where humanity and technology meets. Like, I'm not the tech bro that like, technology is it, you gotta, you just have to do it. I'm much more of like, wait a minute, this is a great tool, and how do we use it to actually make humanity better, right? For many years, that looked at how do we design applications and how do we move the business. And I worked a lot in the corporate space as as a consultant, as an entrepreneur, as an executive for a Fortune 500 company, really kind of playing in innovation, digital transformation, product, user experience design, technology. And when AI came about, that was November 30th, 2022. It was after COVID, right? And it was after I was at a big Fortune 500 company that was very stable. So it was a great place to be, especially during the pandemic. But it also, when we came out of the pandemic, I was really surprised by how much the organization wanted things to go back to the way they were.
Mm.
And for me, I was like, we can't erase that every single one of us just shifted overnight. We were all able to do it. We're more productive than we've ever been. Oh, and we all had time to think about what we really value as humans. And so at first I thought it was just my company. Then I started looking around. And I mean, I was, for the next 2 years, I was kind of horrified by like, oh my God, people are talking about in-person versus work for remote instead of like, wait a minute, we have all these other things that have changed. And this is the fight that, the hill we're going to die on. So when ChatGPT came out, of course, they started playing with it. I'm a natural explorer. Marney, I wish sometimes I wasn't like this, but I'm always on the forefront going, ooh, what could this do? How could we use this? And once I started playing with it and understanding the technology itself is not really different than what we'd been doing since about 2015 to 2017. It's just that like everything we've been doing for the last 25 years finally came together and it's all here. So where I came to with AI is like, wait a minute, you don't have to worry about how the tech works anymore. What needs to be done is we need people and leaders and individuals and moms and dads and even kids. We need to be dreaming again. We need to be creating and innovative. And guess what? There's a million problems in our world to go after. So it doesn't matter what it is. It's more of, can we start reimagining things so that since we know we have a society that's moving, like you said, the pandemic and all that, how do we look towards the future? So I started a company a couple of years ago where the main focus is around how do we better serve humanity and use AI as the excuse we've all been waiting for, right? And so for me, AI is this great tool that like you don't have to learn how to use, you just have to start thinking with it for it to open up 100 new possibilities about the same situation. And with that, I'll share with you, like, I literally just used it this weekend to be like, how can I get my 12-year-old to listen to me to actually clean her room? I'm like, I'm at a loss. I have nothing else. Can I just use it for brainstorming actual problems I have? And once I started using it, and I don't care what technology or what of the LLMs you use, I was actually pretty inspired by the amount of humanness that if we look at it really like a tool and as an excuse, we have. So to me, AI is not the answer, but it's the excuse we've all been looking for to be like, let's solve some of these societal, individual, real problems we have.
So there's a couple things that I think would be really interesting to go into. And the first one, so it's actually the way that I got in. So the fact that you're like that person that you're like, I play as soon as something comes out. That's why I have friends like you. Because I'm the person that's like, oh, I'll play, but I know Lori's playing. And then you send me the link and then you're like, go do this thing. Oh, I'm all over it, right? I'm not the one that has to be convinced, but I always love to have people like you in my life because you're like, you got to go try this thing out. So the first one is, I think there's a little bit of debunking that AI is only to help you with doing stuff faster or more productive. And here's what I want to at least set up. When it was first introduced to me, so I had published my book in 2021. Of course, I had a publishing company. I had a full-time editor that was working with me. And I knew that I wanted to continue to write. And I knew that I know there's more books in me, but I feel like that felt really like a heavy process. And so I started using it with an app that I could throw stuff I was drafting into a way in which I could get immediate feedback, just like from a grammatical standpoint. Like, does that sentence make sense? Could I reformat that a little bit better? How do I tell this story a little bit stronger? I'm thinking this is how it needs to flow. Give me some feedback on that. So it became this really cool tool just around my writing. And that was really how I used it for like 2024. That was about it. It wasn't until I started talking to people like yourself that are like, oh my God, you've like got an opportunity to do all kinds of stuff with this. And so anyway, I know that's one part of it, but it's almost like, can we actually just look at beyond? And you've already started to scratch the surface on that, which it's more than just, can I get some ideas back? It's like literally to your point of like, how do you really interact with AI in a way where it can give you stuff that you had no idea it could do with you?
Oh my God. And it's so cool. It's like, I love this stat. If you think about when I was younger, right? When I went to the library, I had to learn the Dewey Decimal System, open up my card catalog, find where this book was going to be, maybe get one or two books on a topic. If I was lucky, I could check out an encyclopedia and I would go home and I would have that stuff for 3 weeks. And I felt like I had access to so much knowledge. All of a sudden, we have access to 52 million volumes of encyclopedia, right? Like that means that individually we can really, really think different and think in the moment, in a context where you don't have to try to get everyone else to your thought, whatever your weirdo way of thinking is. Like use an LLM, use one of the chatbots, to help you think, and it's so amazing how it just thinks along with you. So on that note, for people who are just experimenting, or I always say with my business clients, I always say, like, look, the ante into the game now is revenue, productivity, and efficiency. Like, if you don't know that we want all of that, everyone's done playing the game of, I want to go, revenue is the thing we're going to work for. The pandemic helped us all see, like, I need more than just money, right? So that's the ante into the game. Where AI comes in is this whole new playing field to say, well, you know what? I'm going to explore something that I'm really interested in. Like I nerd out on quantum physics, or I want to be like, what's the similarities between all the different religions and how are the messages the same? Like I put stuff, I will ask questions that pop in my mind. And all of a sudden I have this like sparring partner who's like, would you be interested in this or that? And I'll, you just have to be there. There's no format to it. You're just like, nope, don't care about that at all. What about this? So you have this like partner. And at the same time, you're like getting much more concise with your thinking. So all of a sudden whatever gift you have, right, gets to go deeper. And I don't know if you know about the flow state, but psychological state of, right, when you're really happy, when you're like, it's the thing that you do when you like lose time and you're just like, oh my God, that was so energizing. And I just worked for 3 hours. It was amazing. Right. Like I find myself getting into things like I nerd out on gardening, or like I said, thinking about thinking. Like I get myself lost sometimes in like, holy cow, this is great. And I can say, can you read this back to me like so a 6-year-old would understand. And that helps me share my own, all of these thoughts. Like Marnie, we each have 70,000 thoughts a day are going around out here. So it helps me take all of this. And when I'm communicating with another person, I can get there much more concise without as much hassle. Like it helps me be more direct and concise. And so I think it's really flipping cool. Like we haven't had anything in a long time that didn't require a lot of hard work to get amazing results. And this is a tool that allows us to be like, hey, this is, how can I actually cut my time? And I can learn it by exploring something I totally love. Not that my boss told me to, not that my family wants me to, me.
I'm sure there's some other things that we could be doing, but I think the second one, before we dig into some of the other pieces around AI and specifically how you've used it, how you're thinking other people can use it, is how do you address the point of view that it is scary and it is dangerous and potentially that we shouldn't be using it at all. So and I'm not saying that, because I think I'm on board with, regardless of what you're doing, like if you're using it for good, if you're using things in the right way. So like, let's take that off the table. We're not talking about that piece of it, but for the people that are like, that is super scary and I'm frightened of what AI is going to do, how do you address that?
There is nobody I talk to and nobody out there who doesn't have fear of some sort around AI. It's an unknown, right?
Right.
I think that every conversation I have is It's about like recognizing that that fear is there. Like we are, not only is our society changing, but here's AI like in the workplace or in our daily lives that are like, okay, we just came from a very predictable world where for the last 150 years with the Industrial Revolution, we had a very fixed, predictable way. And humans are prediction machines. That's how our brain works. And we've been practicing that muscle. Well, all of a sudden AI is into the unknown, right? And that brings up, it's crazy, right? It brings up whatever your personal fear is, it brings it up. Some people are super afraid of sentience, right? Like that AI is going to take over the world. And my response to that is we have a very boring world that's going to be full of filing papers and lines and items if it does. I just don't think we're going to get there. But we're also very, like, as someone who understands the technology, is we are very far away from that. Could it happen? Yes. It is not realistic right now. The second one is, there's three main fears. The second one is the environmental issue. This one really, really bothers me because it takes more energy than we did before. But the truth is we actually started this energy consumption in around 2016, 2017 in the tech world. So when ChatGPT came out, and you're hearing all about these AI data centers and these chips and all of this, that's actually not different than it was before. So since about 2016, we've been consuming about 5 times what we did before then. But here's the thing that's different. And I this one really bothers me, so I'm always up on it. This is the first technology we had, unlike electricity, unlike the train, where the technology itself is working to solve that problem. So when you hear about something like, about a year and a half ago, DeepSeek came out, which was a Chinese version of a new technology, and they literally like cut the energy consumption by, I think it was like down to like a sixth of the other energy. That type of stuff is happening quarter by quarter, chip by chip. The technology itself is actually working on that problem. So while we are building an infrastructure right now, I don't see that as a long-term goal. So that's kind of how I try to squish that one. And then the last one is taking over jobs. This is, if I'm honest, this is going to be a white collar changeover, that a lot of entry level jobs as they look today aren't going to be there. But there's no shortage of the amount of new opportunities that are going to come up. So there's a lot of fear around AI, but it's okay, because guess what? As humans, we can deal with fear and we can still create better things even in the face of it. And I am more about, and I think you are too, like, let's actually create stuff that right supersedes the fear in what the bad stuff that can happen. And let's actually create good stuff so that we can outweigh the bad.
Right. Well, it's very responsive to what I was asking. And I think it's important because I will come across, especially your point, the second point is like how much it is consuming to be able to actually operate. And so, yes, I think it's just like anything. It's like, are we mindful of it? Can we think through that? Like, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to address that first and foremost as much as possible before we dig into some of this other stuff, because I don't want that looming in somebody's head and not being able to really get into what I really am excited to talk to you about. So what I want to get into is a little bit of what you've been thinking through as to what this experience is going to be like that we're offering for people to be able to participate in, which is really thinking about not just the tool, which people are going to get to learn how to use the tool, but this way in which you use the tool, which you are describing, which is to be able to have almost like a conversation with AI. So I wonder if maybe we think of an example of what that might look like and how someone might think, oh, well, I'm just using AI for this one thing. In thinking about, am I just creating a checklist from it? Whereas you might be saying that, but you're like, no, it's even more than that for you to think through something.
Yeah. So it's really about a mindset shift, Marnie. It's integrating what we know, but thinking about it differently. So we've had, like I said, I think we're moving from a fixed to a fluid mindset. So when I think about what we want every woman to leave with out of the cohort, it's that they see a sense of where they have choices constantly. And they learn to a repeatable model that they can think with AI to solve any personal, any business, any minute challenges, so that they just have choice, right? Because choice leads to freedom. Like, yes, I might want to continue doing it this way, but I at least know there's another alternative. And that will bring about a lot of agency for everyone, ideally, right? To where you're like, oh, wait a minute, I get to choose that. So it's actually going to be stronger for me. An example of that is, I'll give you one yesterday that I had with my daughter, where we are building a national history project for a competition she's going to be in. So it's a poster board, and the size dimensions aren't standard trifold boards. So of course my mommy Amazon order didn't fulfill what was needed, and we got to go back and rethink about this. And she was in breakdown. She was like, this is so bad, my friends are ahead. Like, all of the things she could worry about felt like it was collapsing in the moment, even though it's not due for a couple weeks, but it was in that moment. So I literally got on and I was like, I don't know anything about this, but I have these size poster boards. Can you help me engineer a way to use this material we have and help me to get it to this dimensions? Okay, so I could figure it out, but naturally, like, engineering in that, like, 3D modeling doesn't come naturally to me. But instead, what I got was like, the question came back, and by the way, I speak to a lot of mine where I just hit the microphone and I jumble out whatever is in my mouth. And so it came back with, like, here's what you need to do is you go look for cardboard. Here's how you want to cut it. Here's how you'll make it stand. Here's how you can glue them together. Don't use this, use that. And I was like, I don't have that. I have Gorilla Glue instead. And it was like, fine, perfect. And I just, like, literally had this, like, assistant guide helping me as my child was in meltdown. I was like, we got this. As you do as a mama, we can figure this out. This isn't the end. So that is a way of thinking with it instead of thinking of it as the answer, right? It didn't provide me with AI is going to solve it. It instead provided me with a tool in a real crisis situation I have. So that's one example. And another example is, my husband did all the cooking. And so since he's passed, I have to do all the cooking. And the thing that stresses me out the most about that is thinking about what to make for dinner. Well, I literally now open up my door. I will be like, snap a picture of what's in my drawers. I snap a picture of, like, maybe the side doors, the whole thing. And I say, give me 3 gluten-free recipes that I can make in under 30 minutes. And every day it looks at all of the ingredients that are left in my fridge, and it gives me 3 options. So I just am like, oh, that one sounds the best. Or I'll be like, I don't like that. Give me 5 more. And it literally takes all of that worry about before, what am I going to make? What am I going to make? What do I have? Blah, 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 blah. And instead it does that. And then here's the real win is I now don't waste any produce. Like, I love fresh vegetables, like, always have a ton of fresh, like, fruits and vegetables, and I don't waste it because it's like, oh, what you can make is a, slaw, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm literally, like, so much more efficient with my grocery shopping. And I solved my big problem. So those are 2 very, like, practical things, but that is a shift in how we look at technology. Like, I don't have to go to my screen to get the answer. I bring the technology into my daily life. And that's what we want people to leave this cohort with, of, like, how do we get you to start solving problems that are just causing you stress? How can we clear that off of your plate? Because some of them are, like, thinking of what to cook for dinner. That's a dumb problem for me to be spending any energy on.
Right. Oh, exactly. And actually, every time I talk to you, I'm always like, all right, dinner ideas. And the fact that you're like, here's what I've got. And yes, it's a dumb problem to solve, but it's one of those things that's like, that's heavy. It just, even you talking about your daughter's school project, I'm like, yes, I love all of this. But you said something at the beginning, and I want to dig into that a little bit more, because this whole mindset shift, I think it's going to be a gift to people personally, because it's like, Lori's also going to give you this tool that you can do this, but the shift in how you think through it versus just going, I'm just going back to the way I've always done it. That's what I know to work, even if I don't love it, like that kind of thing. So let me ask you this question, because I know that this is at the heart of even why we started talking about putting together a cohort, which was, I believe, because I am a woman that tends to do this, which is I end up trying to fix and optimize my life many times before I actually take the time to see what's driving a pattern or a behavior. And so I'd love to get your perspective, because obviously that's a theme that we're focusing on and why we're kicking off this cohort as we come out of this quarter, of seeing what starts to unearth for people once they start to actually see these patterns for themselves. How does that help them move into the space, and why do we do that work first before showing them how to
Sure.
optimize?
Great question. I mean, the truth is, our brains are the best supercomputer ever. And we have patterns that we've established that have been winning for us your whole life, right? Like you're successful because of patterns you run. But sometimes what happens is your brain, in an attempt to take your genetics, your experiences, your lived life, right, tries to shortcut and run patterns that it thinks is efficient. So it actually becomes in your background, you don't even know you're doing it. So in this cohort, I like to talk about it as like a human operating system, right? Like we are beings of energy, and your mind is always trying to figure out, how do I get the most reward for the least amount of work, right? Like if you ever wondered if everyone's a procrastinator or is it just you, it's everyone. It's literally how our brains are working. So in this cohort, what we want to do and why it's so important is we want you to get to a place where you can just see your patterns. Some of them you're going to be like, damn, I'm a badass. Look at me. I always get stuff done. But then you're going to get other patterns that show up. Like I'll share a personal one with you that it's very difficult and it's still there. But sometimes when I don't like things, I will create an invisible enemy. Like they're wrong for blah, 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 blah. And so, and I'm pretty positive, so I don't put it at a person, but there's like, there's an invisible enemy there. Well, when that pattern is running, I find myself lonely. I find myself stuck in circumstances that should in no way be related, but the outcome's the same. And so by looking at my patterns, what I've been able to do is to say, well, when I feel this in my body, my body is telling me that something isn't in alignment with who I am. And the funny thing is, Marnie, our bodies tell us so much information that we ignore, but it's amazing. So by seeing those patterns, what happens is you get to just it helps you drop the judgment, because you realize that you can just, that this is a pattern that's running, that it's not fixed. Our minds can change at any time. And in the cohort, we'll talk with you about how to do that and how to, use a tool to help you do that. But it becomes really empowering when you're like, it almost becomes comical when you're like, there's that pattern coming up again. Look at me running it. And that gives you a little bit of freedom and a little bit of reprieve of, I have to do this and this is happening to me, to wait a minute, I'm running this pattern. How do I get that from my subconscious into my awareness? So to go back to the seeing cohort, it is so important for us to pull some of those patterns that they are deeply ingrained with you. And it doesn't mean they'll go away. It just means that you can now say, you know what? That pattern worked for me, but that's not actually what is needed. And that is, I'm not going to get the result I want if I run this pattern. And AI, it looks across humans, so it can give you so many other ideas of like, what does it like I often use it with clients of, what does it show up for other people like when I run this pattern? That's
Right.
crazy interesting to see. So I want to empower, and I think we want to empower people to be like, one, you just are. There is no good or bad. Here's
Right.
what you're doing. You're doing it anyways. So at least own it and then choose. Do you want to continue it or not? But at least you're giving yourself the empowerment of choice.
And I'll say this, thank you for sharing your point of view on that. And I love the fact that we're going to take the cohort there. The other piece of this that I find is so important is, even like you saying, like, I find the enemy, and I'm like, oh, that really resonates with me, where it's like, okay, who's against me? Who's, like, what's actually at play here? And that I think is also a really big piece of this, of not just what we're going to do for everybody individually, but the fact that we're creating an environment by which you're gonna hear what other people are, surfacing, and then you're like, oh my God, maybe I have some of that. Or the fact that it's like, it's not that, but mine's over here, and that's really cool. I could learn from this person. I mean, that's what I love about that kind of learning too, is we're in a place where we can do something very individual, but we can also share it in a way that's communal, so we can learn from one another. I mean, that's the power
it's
of
like,
this.
it's so powerful because, like, as a human machinery, as a body, right, we are all entangled with people, the energy of the people around us. And so when you get groups of people together, that is hard coded into us. Community is our survival, right? Like people who live alone, it's, through all of human history, it has been like it is hardwired into us to be part of community. So when you're learning with community, it's not like you just learn one thing. It's like actually you start to rethink and learn from everybody else around you. So you get just all this validation for stuff that you like. You also are like, I never thought of that somebody else's response to how I'm like this. And your mind is so able to move faster and to free up space when it's learning in a group setting versus trying to do it all your own. And I don't know how we got our society like this, but especially at least here in the US, we are very much like, I can do it all. It's me, me, me. I have to carry the burden of everything. And, shared spaces are they're just better. We are literally wired to operate better when we're in a community space of learning.
What does living intentionally look like in this season of your life?
It's really important. I think with all of the changes that I've been through and all the changes that are going on in the world, I think that having my very clear intention is like an anchor for me, right? So I want to live with values that are important to me. What it's allowed me to do is it's almost like being able to see the bigger picture. Let me just say my intention or my purpose is about building positive systems of change for humanity. Like I'm really clear on that. I'm going to do that through love. I don't want to do that through dominance or fear. I want people to learn, grow, see their light. So what that's done for me is now I can much more clearly in any conversation, instead of feeling like, do I know enough? Do I have to let my ego drive? Instead, this intention acts like an anchor for me to say, well, that's curious that someone is looking at the view from that point of view. I wonder what lesson that could teach me to help me with my bigger goal, right? Like, how could I ease that person's pain? And so it's allowed me to really look forward and understand that I can be an architect of my life rather than it happening to me, which is so much more fun.
What's one shift, big or small, that's helped you live more true to yourself?
I think honesty, a lot of personal honesty. I've been very good at playing the game and the plan of what is supposed to be right. And I don't think I always considered myself on what, right. What do I really want? Like, I'm really honest about, do I want to do this? Do I not? Does this bring me value? Does this not? Is this a good use of my time or not? Wow. Those little moments and those little honest moments compound into a whole lot of power that I don't think I knew I had.
Okay. Last question. What's one thing you've learned about life that you'd want every woman to know?
That we're all connected, that we're all people, that you have a natural superpower and gifts and a light to shine. Every single one of us does. And I don't know, society, it feels like, can often dampen it. And I just want to be a reminder that, like, you are powerful. We are all more powerful when we're connected with each other than we are trying to do everything by ourselves. And we get to play a whole lot more. If you're connected to other people who can do different stuff, you get to play in the arena that serves you, that is really fun. So it does lighten your load overall.
Thank you so much for having a conversation about this. I'm so excited about what's coming.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me, Marney.